All right. Welcome, Amber, to the Biohacker Babes. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be with both of you.
Yes, we're bringing a wonderful and I think not talked about enough topic to our audience today. So, a lot in the realm with emotional eating. And Lauren and I have our own personal journeys with this. You have your journey, that which we're going to get into. And actually, we did an episode about emotional eating a few years ago, and we had so many downloads, and I was like, wow, this is a huge topic that we're not talking about enough. And even in like health conferences and biohacking events, like no one's really talking about the emotional side of eating. So I'm really excited to bring this to our audience. But I would love to jump in with your story, because I heard you say that you have gained and lost over 1,000 pounds in your journey. And that was all before you discovered that there was more going on than just like a food issue. So what was the pivotal moment or turning point for you where you were like, there's something else I need to look at here?
Yeah, and the awareness around the weight stuff didn't come until after I stopped, binge eating and healed my food addiction. And I noticed there was this like, I was either losing control with food and gaining 20, 30, 40, pounds every few months, or I was trying to grip for control with food and diet and quick fix and find the perfect eating style and over exercise to lose the weight again. And then it was just this like all or nothing pendulum swing back and forth between losing control with food and then losing control on the other side, punishing myself with diets and quick fixes. And so for me, I just want to share a couple brief backstory things, because I think this will just help resonate with the listener. I struggle with my body image from a very young age. I was called fat and ugly on the bus when I was 5 and was bullied by everyone on the bus. And that was a defining moment for me, where I took that identity on for the next 20 years of my life. I grew up in a household where my parents did the best they could, and they were amazing parents, but my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis before I was born. And so one of her ways of compensating in her relationship with me, because there was a lot of things we couldn't do together, was around food. And she had a food addiction. I just didn't realize it until I healed my own and observed some of her behaviors and habits and realized, oh, interesting, that a lot of this was unconsciously learned, as I was growing up. And it's not her fault. It's not a blame, but just those observations. And then you get conditioned by Hollywood and the diet and weight loss industries that you have to lose weight and look a certain way and have a flat stomach and all the fake photoshopping that we're sold. And it makes you compare your body and make yourself feel like there's something wrong with you. And they create the problem and the solution. The solution is do the diet, count calories, then you'll lose weight and finally be happy. And that's what the multi-trillion-dollar a year weight loss and diet industry are selling you, that is such a falsehood. And so we're literally chasing this number on the scale. We're tying our worth up with the number and the way we look, rather than it being a feeling that you feel in any moment, because you exist, and because you exist, you are worthy. And so for me, all of this accumulated and blew up in my face in my early 20s when I had a bad breakup, lost weight really quickly, reached my goal weight, wasn't happy. And then it's like the switch flipped and I started binge eating. Like I wasn't just eating one or two things. I was eating tables full of food, eating until I was so full I was sick. I went through a period of binging and purging for 6 months, gained 88 pounds and became the heaviest that I had ever been. And the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment that came along with all of that was so heavy and so dense. And I was just staying at home, isolating. Aside from going to my job, I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to date. I just didn't feel good enough. I was unrecognizable, and I really isolated my life. And so the low point moment for me was really a couple of years later, when I had realized that I was binge eating. I'd stopped purging, but I was binge eating 5 or 6 nights a week. And I was just laying on the couch in pain, going like, I don't know if I'm going to be here to 30 if I keep doing this to myself, because it was so destructive. Like the overconsumption of food, the intense negative criticism and negative self-talk, then trying to go and compensate and work it off in the gym and then restrict. Like it was all so hard on my body. My digestion was a mess, my energy, everything. And so I'd always throw the food in the garbage can, because that was the justification of like, I'm never going to go dig through my garbage and eat it. Like who would ever do that? Right. So I'd throw the food away and then it would turn me off. And that particular night I had thrown the food away. And then about an hour later, when I had a little bit of room, settle in my stomach, what I call the ego mind, the inner critic, was like, well, if this is the last time you're going to do this, you might as well just dig through the garbage and eat the food. And I did. I went and pulled my garbage can out and I dug through and ate the cookies and just sat on the floor in shame and started crying, thinking like, who am I? I just ate it in my garbage. Like, what happened? How is this my life? And then I threw the food in the dumpster in the back alley and went out later and dug through and got it out of there, which was like an even lower. I'm like, I just ate it in my dumpster. Like, this is a serious problem. I can no longer be in denial that this isn't a big deal. I can no longer be in denial that my relationship with food isn't bad. It's like, yes, it is. I'm eating out of my dumpster. I am unwell on every level. And that moment was incredibly important because that suffering that I felt in that moment, the deep shame and guilt and embarrassment, the fear of like my life being on the line essentially crushed this, it crushed this denial, you could say, because I think one of the things that happens is when we're considering going on a healing journey, not just a diet, not just adding a supplement, like I'm talking addressing the roots of your stuff. It is scary. And there's so much unknown. And what if I fail? What if it doesn't work? What if, you're intimidated? I got 80 plus pounds to lose. I've got so much to figure out. I knew nothing about health, nothing. And so all my fears and uncertainties were crushed in that moment because the suffering just became so big. I could no longer ignore it. And that's what catapulted me onto the healing journey of like, I have no idea what to do or how I'm going to figure it out, but I have to do something because this is not what's going to end me and disrupt all of the things that I want in my life. So that was my low point moment. And it really got me onto the journey. And there's many layers of that healing: emotional healing, energetic healing, physical healing, self-love healing, which I spent the next couple of years really deeply immersing myself in, but I fully healed my relationship with food. To me, it's not even about recovery. It's about fully healing it and leaving it behind you rather than fearing, oh my God, like it's only a matter of time before it kicks up again. No, when you address the roots and you really heal, it's behind you. And that's the ultimate goal. So that was my low point and what really catapulted me onto the journey.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Yeah, I think people need to hear the extremes of this. Maybe not everyone will get to that point, but I think most women experience this on some form on the spectrum at some point. And thank you. Like, you had that bottom of the barrel moment that catapulted you and brought you here. And now you can share this work and hopefully stop people from getting to that depth.
Yeah.
And I love that you're going right to the root causes because it's not really about food. I think there's so much underneath of it. How do we even, like, if we're going to zoom out all the way, what are the sort of the initial categories? You mentioned energetic, social, there's physical, but would you go even further back than that? Like, how do we even start to understand the complexity of this?
Yeah. And you just hit on the nail on the head. It's complex. And I think that's where the food industry, the diet industry, the weight loss industry by design don't give this enough emphasis, or the health industry, because if you heal this and address the roots, you're no longer a lifetime customer to all of their gimmicks. And they don't want that, right? You're empowered, you're sovereign, you're intuitive, you're confident, you're connected with your body. They don't want that because they wouldn't make any money then, right? So they keep selling all this stuff to distract you. So it is very what I call multidimensional, which means it starts usually in your childhood and you don't even know it. Maybe you had a trauma. Like, to me, that moment on the bus was a trauma. Like, if something's going to influence the way you feel for the next 20 years of your life, it's having a big impact on your nervous system. So it's your upbringing, your childhood. Were you put on a diet as a kid? Were you told by your parents you're fat or too skinny, or you can't have dessert this week because you need to lose weight? Like, those comments have a significant impact. Maybe you were told at the dinner table there's starving kids and you need to finish everything on your plate, and therefore overeating was normalized and you don't know your fullness cue. Those are innocent things that were taught. Maybe you had to move as a child, or your parents divorced, or just something, or things happen that you don't even realize contributed to starting to use food as a coping mechanism. Or maybe it wasn't food right off the bat. Maybe you were kind of, pushed into perfection. My parents only love me if I do better in school. I only get attention if I get A pluses versus Bs. Like, there's that whole perfection, also people pleasing mentalities that are birthed as children. Like, you put yourself last. It's frowned upon in this family to put yourself first. You're frowned upon to be selfish, right? Like, and then you want to be in your tribe and you want to be loved by your family. So you morph into this person who takes care of everyone else, but then you're last on your list. So all of these things, what's really all of this behavior is rooted in is unworthiness and not feeling good enough. And between ages 0 and 7, we are conditioned in some form or another that we are not good enough, and we start to tie our worth outside of ourselves. And that also is what drives these self-sabotaging behaviors, because people-pleasing, perfection, all or nothing mentalities, which are learned by diets, having to be perfect to lose weight or whatever the outcome is, it all programs our mind into these all or nothing behaviors with food in our body or weight. And so all of that starts in childhood, though, and a lot of us have not dealt with our wounded inner child, who literally will be what calls the shots, right? And how you feel and show up in your life if you don't ever learn about it and understand that it stays wounded and upset until you deal with it. So there's that whole aspect. There could be a generational, like I came from 4 generations of hoarding and addiction, and it started with my great grandparents immigrating from Europe and then starting from scratch and building a homestead and then losing everything in the Great Depression and having to start again and losing everything in the First and Second World Wars and then having to start over, and just this mentality of we have to save everything, we have to hang on to everything, we don't know when it's going to happen again. So that mentality was then passed into hoarding, which was then in my grandmother and mother's lineage of like, we don't have enough, and then making up for it with too much food, with too many belongings, overconsumption. And I just always remember my mom having the fridge overfull, the cupboards were overstuffed. And I'm like, Mom, why? She's like, well, I didn't have enough when I was a kid, so I'm just making up for it. So and the reason I bring that up is because I remember going to the store, and I'd go to the organic store and try and justify why it was a better choice. It's not. It doesn't matter when you're eating copious amounts of food. It doesn't matter what kind of food you're eating. But I'd have my basket full, like way more than I could ever eat. But I could hear that, well, what if it's not enough? Like if this is the last time I'm going to do this, like I've got to make sure I have enough, and that lack mentality from the lineage. So there's those kinds of things. And then there's the like negative self-talk. There is the fight with your body and your weight, things you don't like about the way that you look, the inner critic. That all gets very heavy and dense when you're constantly belittling and being mean to yourself. You want to numb it out with food. That's one of the biggest reasons why we use food as a coping mechanism, to numb, shove down, or avoid feeling. And it gives us a quick pleasure moment. It gives us a big dopamine high. And dopamine is one of our mood boosting neurotransmitters. Many people have low dopamine, so it's very easy for them to chase dopamine highs from food, alcohol, online shopping, scrolling, things like that, and not even know it. So like these are some of the potential many things that are rooted in binge and emotional eating and food addiction. It could be gut issues making you have bigger sugar cravings, hormone imbalances that impact your mood and impact your behaviors and your energy levels that then trigger you to emotionally eat. There's so many things that fuel these behaviors that are not talked about in mainstream or health and wellness. And that's, in my opinion, one of the reasons why this continues to be an epidemic, because it needs a level of attention that isn't being given, because it doesn't make big pharma and all these companies a lot of money. So if women are out of their power, and men, and they're suffering and fighting with your body, you're easier to control and manipulate. And out of a state of desperation, you keep buying the things that don't work for you. And they know that. So this is why really starting to reflect upon some of these things that I just mentioned and expanding and getting curious about what is triggering you is incredibly important, because until you understand what's triggering you and you build your worth, it is easy to stay stuck in these cycles, but it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. A lot to dig into there. Something that stood out to me that you said about dopamine. So my journey with food, I was never a binge eater, but I was very into restriction. And it started when I was 10 years old. And I can still remember like photographic memory, sitting in the cafeteria in 5th grade with my girlfriends and eating half an apple for lunch. And they were like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, because I want to look like this girl on the cover of 17 magazine, who was probably photoshopped to like be the thinnest person ever. This is back in the 90s, right? And I don't even know where it came from. I mean, we were ballet dancers, so certainly there was like that image, the low fat, being super skinny in the 90s. But I also at the same time, like I kind of got addicted to the food restriction, and I never really thought of like the dopamine connection. So like you said, you can get the dopamine high from binge eating. You can also get it from feeling like, oh, I can just restrict my food. I'm in control. I'm a better person. And there's very much of that like addictive OCD people pleasing continuum. I don't know. It's pretty wild to think about. So if we are tracing this back to childhood issues, like where do we begin with that? Because I do see the conversation changing in the next generation, where it's like, oh, childhood trauma, everyone has it, let's talk about it, let's heal it, versus maybe baby boomers are like, stuff that down. So where do we begin with looking at our childhood and how that could have impacted us?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, starting to look at How did your parents perceive food? How did they talk about it and their bodies? Were they constantly in negative self-talk, or were they restricting or on diets, or constantly weighing themselves and obsessed with the number on the scale? And were you observing that behavior? Were they restricting you? Were they putting you on diets? Were they calling you fat? Were they calling you too skinny? Were they poking at your belly, commenting that you had to lose weight? These are all the things that we need to start observing. Did any of this happen to me? Were you told you need to eat everything on your plate because they're starving kids and you're guilt tripped into needing to finish your food? Were you told you don't get dessert until you finish what's on your plate? Or you left home as a child before you should have been because you're too young, and food was what helped you feel safe because you were home alone. I've had several clients who they had single parents who had to go to work and pay the bills. And so they'd come home from school, 7, 8, 9 when they shouldn't have been home alone. And food was the thing that became the soother. And that's how they inherited continuing to use food as a coping mechanism. But often something has happened, and maybe it wasn't in your childhood that it was food. But like I said, you were programmed that you had to people please and put everyone else first. Like I've had several clients who were the oldest child and had several younger siblings, and then something happened to a parent, or all of a sudden the child had to step into an adult role as a child and didn't even get the childhood, and therefore had to take on a lot of responsibility. And that is what started fueling these behaviors, because they literally didn't feel safe or supported or heard. Maybe you didn't get love as a child, and so this was your way to start compensating. And so if we have had any of those experiences or anything else that had happened to you, God forbid you were abused, like my heart goes out to anyone who's been through anything in that nature. But these things trigger our nervous system to go into a fight or flight stress response. And our body will hang on to these memories and, images and emotions until we come back and we start connecting with these parts of us that are holding this inside. Like when I was healing my relationship with food, I went in like 12 different times and visualized with my inner child going on the bus, getting called fat and ugly, and like helping her process through that emotion and let it go, and being there and having her back and giving her love and reassurance. But the inner child healing is just one piece of like the whole puzzle. But those wounds will fuel our insecurities to this day and shape a big part of our identity. And so if we can heal those wounds and we can give love and reassurance to our inner child, we're going to build a lot of confidence and self-worth, which is going to help us set better boundaries, say no, ask for help, call in healthier relationships, and have less tolerance to be treated poorly. And to really have that belief in ourselves. So I think that's really important to understand. And I think from a young age, speaking of low dopamine, a lot of kids end up with low dopamine because of these stressors, because of the poor quality of food that we're being given. Inflammatory food, seed oils, processed sugar, fast food, all this stuff suppresses our dopamine because it causes inflammation in the body and it messes with our gut. And so you may have had low dopamine from a very young age, a lot of antibiotic use. I had to take a lot of antibiotics as a kid because I was getting UTIs, infections. But obviously, again, it wasn't anyone's fault, but my mom didn't know how to course correct and give me a probiotic, or like I was eating a load of sugar. It didn't matter, right? So I think my dopamine was probably low from a very young age because of all of that. And then the lower your dopamine, the more likely you are to want to seek reward, whether it's like you said, restricting and getting the reward high off of restricting, seeing the number you want on the scale, the clothing fits the way you want, or you're rewarding via people pleasing. Because as soon as you do the thing for the person, even if you're like, I shouldn't have done that, I didn't have time, you literally become addicted to chasing validation from that person. Like, oh, you did such a great job. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. And then literally you're tying your worth in what that person thinks of you and needing to get that validation from them, which gives you a 10-second dopamine high, which is great. But then you have to stay in the dynamic of people pleasing to keep getting that reward response instead of you learning how to reward yourself and give yourself the dopamine, the serotonin, all these mood boosting, feel good neurotransmitters that are responsible for leveling your mood and your connection with yourself. But we've been so conditioned to use food to cope, to diet, to chase quick fixes, to numb out. And that is what has been normalized. So unfortunately, the dopamine highs get bigger. We eat more food, more sugar. We have to scroll longer. We have to drink more to get that same numbing effect. And it just keeps having such a negative impact on our bodies. So I think another big inhibitor to all of this and a big negative influence is the food industry, because they have specifically designed food on purpose to be addictive. The same guys that created tobacco and made nicotine and cigarettes addictive were hired by the food industry to come in and do the exact same thing. And this should make people so angry that food was designed to be addictive on purpose, to make you addicted, to increase your appetite level, to make you lose control with food and have bigger cravings. And then eventually it eats away at your physical and mental health. And then at some point you may need medication from Big Pharma, and it's this vicious cycle. So it's not just the food, because I was to the point where I stopped eating addictive food and still wanted to binge on a jar of natural peanut butter and 10 bananas. But the food industry is playing a big role in the addictive nature of the food and these big dopamine highs. So there's that aspect of it. And then there's this like unworthiness, this void, this lack of self-love. If I don't love myself and I have a void, I'm trying to fill this void with food or people pleasing that I'm never going to fill. Nothing external can fill your internal void. It is an inward journey. And that's why addressing the roots and healing is so valuable, because filling your void will help you break free of these habits and behaviors. But that's one of the biggest things, is we have this void, this lack of the love that we're trying to fill with food or weight loss, numbers, whatever it is, that will never make you feel fulfilled. And so this is where we need to normalize going inward and doing the deeper work, learning how to feel your emotions. I know it feels scary, but over time it gets a little easier. Learning how to identify what's triggering you to binge or emotionally eat. Understanding what kind of coping mechanisms do I want to try that are healthier for me than continuing to use food or numb out with technology, right? Starting to catch the negative self-talk and say positive things about myself, apologize to myself for being negative to myself. Affirmation, it's going to feel fake in the beginning. You're going to feel like a fraud, but we have to reprogram our subconscious, because the biggest thing that everyone needs to understand is that if you've for years or decades been negative toward yourself, you've been in negative habits or patterns, things I'm talking about here, you have to understand how deeply ingrained that is in your subconscious mind and how physically wired it is actually in your brain. And that's why it feels so hard to change this all of a sudden, because it's years of physical wiring in your brain and programming in your mind that is going to take time to change. And that's why you've got to be willing to be in it for the long game, a year or two, to break free, because then you'll have this new identity and this confidence and this worth for the rest of your life. But that's where so many people either get intimidated or go, that's too long. Like, I'm just going to go on Ozempic. I'm just going to do the next. And it's like, you can't mess with nature, and it's just another quick fix. And like I'm telling you, if you just put the time and energy into this, you will be so happy that you did. But this is, as you're hearing, like there's a lot here, and we pick through it one step at a time. But this is why binge eating, emotional eating, food addiction, bulimia are such an epidemic, especially in North America, because all the media is like yelling at you to just quick fix. And right now Ozempic is the shiny thing, and there's not billions of dollars of marketing being put in to address the roots, like build worth, learn your triggers, learn how to feel through your emotions. So people get distracted by all the shiny stuff and keep chasing it, right?
And I feel like that's human nature. We want things to be simpler. But that's why I like that you brought up the food issue, because I think that at least is a little bit more accessible. Like, let's just start eating real foods. So we're not hijacking our brain. Yeah. That's a great place to start. But I'm just so curious with like this void. It doesn't seem like unworthiness is just pertains to females.
No.
But it does seem like emotional eating and eating disorders are by and large experienced more by females, maybe just in my own experience, but I know my client base, females have more emotional eating issues versus the men, maybe addictions, alcohol, other things. Is there something that you think pertains more to the female physiology beyond just like beauty culture? Like, why is it that food is the thing that we're consuming? Or maybe we're just not talking about the men. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem, because around 50% of the male population is struggling with some form of self-sabotage with food and body image issue, and 90% of females in North America. I think that part of it is these conversations have not been normalized. There is so much shame and guilt and embarrassment behind this. Like, and it's more acceptable, I think, for a man to come out and brag about eating a whole pizza. But if a woman came out and was like, everyone's like, what did you do last night? Yeah, I ate a whole pizza and a whole thing of ice cream. And then I was like, no woman is proud, and no other woman is going to be like, good for you. Like, that's so awesome that you could eat that much. I bet you had like epic gains in the gym today. Like, it's a very different conversation. And I also think because the female population was so hijacked by Hollywood starting in the 90s and the early 2000s with like ultra thin, and yes, the photoshopping and the editing and all of it, like,
and it's getting worse.
It's getting
we're
worse.
All used to seeing it online, but I'm seeing it in person now. Like I saw
Yeah.
a woman on the street. I was like, wait, you're standing on the street. You don't look real. This
yeah.
is
Oh,
Yeah.
like they've had like work done? What do you
so
mean?
much work. Like she
Yeah.
looked like a doll. I was
Yeah.
like, oh wow, you're not even hiding behind a camera. This is actually manifesting
Yeah.
In real life filter.
real.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing.
Getting
And,
worse.
and now with all the quote unquote work you can get done, it doesn't matter whether you're using food or you're using surgeries or injections. It's all rooted in the unworthiness and the self-loathing and the self-hatred and the people who have been given the power and influence. Like I always say, and whatever, everyone has different opinions, but like shame on like whoever catapulted the Kardashians into such fame. They are a horrible influence on the female society because all that stuff didn't really get kickstarted until they did it all. So one of my other big things is one of the reasons why it's so important for us to build our worth and fill the void is so we stop being influenced by people who could not give two, shits about you. Who want you to buy all their beauty industry and all their makeup and all their brands because they want you to be insecure. I went to...
And they're biohackers. The Kardashians do so much in the realm of health. Like,
but do they? Like, we don't know them
but
unless
they
you've
don't
ever met
share
them and you
it.
don't know them. Like, we need to stop following all these people and going, I'm going to do it because they're doing it. No, why don't
Correct,
you take your power
correct.
back?
But they're not
and
sharing
use
the
your-
real work. They're sharing.
No, they're
pieces
not, and
that's
they're-
going to help their pockets.
Yeah. And it's just so frustrating because this is the problem. If you're desperate and insecure, you look at these people like gods and idol worship, which is another huge problem that humanity needs to stop doing. And then you give your power away and go, well, I'm worthless, but maybe if I buy this thing that they're promoting or selling, I'll be somebody. And that's literally such a sad mentality because everyone in the world has such an opportunity to be in their power. You are somebody. Being a celebrity doesn't make you anybody different. Like, we're all human, but because we've been so conditioned that, if you're not thin enough, not pretty enough, blah, 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 you don't have 1 million followers, like, you're nothing. None of that matters. What matters is you feeling good living in your body and the way that you treat yourself and speak to yourself and the way you treat others, in my opinion. And that's what really matters. And so when you heal, you stop comparing yourself to others. You stop belittling yourself. You stop spending money on all this stuff to try and make yourself feel good enough because it never will, right? And you detach from all these standards and these trends and this stuff that's just a bunch of BS. And in my opinion, that is power. Like, I could care less what anyone I'm following on Instagram looks like. I could really care less what the Kardashians are doing. In fact, whatever they're doing, I'm going to stay 1,000,000 feet away from that because, like, red flag. But that's the power that you gain. And you actually save a lot of money in the long run because you're not mindlessly going and spending it on all this stuff to try and feel like you're somebody, because you are, and you get to claim that when you heal.
Yeah. But that marketing is coming
Yeah.
at you from every angle.
Totally.
I mean, even I'm guilty with like more like biohacking tech or supplements. Instagram algorithm knows what I'm into.
Right.
And so often I'm like, oh, that looks like a cool thing. Put it in my shopping cart. And then I'm like, do I really need that? Oh, that looks
Right.
like a cool supplement. Do you really need that? But the marketing is just everywhere.
You need that.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's another reason why healing and becoming attuned to your body is so important, because then instead of like, oh, that looks fun or that, it's like, does that feel good for my body? Is that in alignment for me right now? And that becomes what makes your decisions. And again, that is so powerful, right?
Yeah.
So like, I know that if my nervous system is stressed out and I'm not sleeping well or my cortisol's high, hopefully this is still working. Are you guys there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't.
I
Hello?
think we lost. Oh, we lost you for a second.
Yeah, you guys froze. Are you there?
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear us now?
Oh my gosh.
Everybody's
Okay.
back.
We're good? Okay.
We're good. I only lost you for like 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Perfect.
quick.
So it's just saying,
Okay.
when you become in tune, instead of jumping on a bunch of bandwagons, even with biohacking or health stuff, it's like, does that feel right for me? Right? And you use your own discernment and your intuition, and you're like, you know what? Right now, my cortisol is a little too high to be detoxing and hopping on that thing. That doesn't feel right for me. What feels better is restorative yoga and getting more rest and maybe just getting out for some walks, right? Versus the next hit training trend that isn't going to be good for you if your cortisol is really high. So that to me, again, this is the power and the attunement that happens when you heal and you learn how to listen to your body. You and your body call the shots together, and you, whether you figure it out on your own or you work with someone that helps you figure it out, you figure out what you need and take those steps instead of, again, like the impulsive stuff. I get it. I like see stuff all the time. And I'm like, that just does not feel right for me right now. But like whoever that's good for, like awesome, right? So the discernment piece is huge, and you build that as you step into your power. And I feel like anyone who's been in the coaching industry or has a business, like there's so much shiny marketing for everything, whether it's like make more money or do this thing or this, and like you learn how to lean back and observe the shiny marketing, but not do it right away. I've learned those lessons in the past anyway in my business. I'm like, now I just lean back and observe, and I don't make any decisions right away because I did that and it didn't work out very well. So, but these are the things you learn,
I'm like,
right?
Nope, delete.
Yeah. But it's okay because we're human and we learn. But yeah, I just feel like the marketing is very strong, and that's when we need to also heal though, so we can have discernment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
a very good
powerful trait to have. Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned the Kardashians, which I feel like they have made Ozempic popular. I mean,
of course.
I have to hear your opinion on this, because even in the biohacking health optimization space, there's a lot of, yay for it or nay, it's destroying people's lives. So what do you think about it as far as like cutting the food noise? Is this a good thing for people? Are we bypassing what we actually need to be healing?
Yeah, I don't think it's a good thing at all for the food noise. I think that it's a complete Band-Aid and a complete money grab. How are you going to heal your relationship with food and build your worth if you're just putting another Band-Aid on and shutting off your hunger signal, shutting off your ability to feel? Why are we not talking more about the serious negative side effects of this? There's just been a court case come out where 1,500 people lost their eyesight. That's a significant life-altering side effect that was not talked about. So again, this is another shiny thing that is making pharma a ton of money, and these doctors get paid a commission. Well, a lot of them are faithful to their commission, unfortunately, and not to their patient care. Maybe some are, but I'd like to know how much money some of these people are making that is, making them make this decision. I know some people say, oh, for microdosing and all this. And I'm like, I see incredible results with my clients doing things naturally, addressing the roots. Why would I start, recommending them to go see their doctor and get Ozempic and potentially have all these side effects when they're healing just as effectively, or if not more, without it? Because as soon as you come off of it, okay, it suppresses your ghrelin, which makes you hungry. You don't feel hungry. So you're malnourished and you're under eating. As soon as you come off of it, it skyrockets your ghrelin, because anything you suppress is going to amplify. It's re-triggering binge and emotional eating. It is amplifying the level of that binge and emotional eating. It's shutting off women's dopamine and serotonin. They're not feeling. Some women are becoming suicidal and lacking purpose on Ozempic. Some are losing weight and can't stop. Osteoporosis, osteopenia, permanent muscle loss, let alone the hormone damage, the thyroid issues, the turbo cancer, eyesight loss. Is that worth it? It's not worth it, in my opinion.
Scary.
When I have
we've
a client,
been talking about that a lot, even just in our podcast last week. Just, we don't want to shut down hunger, and just that variable alone, like hunger is a survival mechanism. It's our intuition. It's our connection with the environment. If we don't have that, then how do we take in any signals at all?
Yeah, exactly. And
Huge
so
loss.
Anything that's going to mess with nature, in my opinion, I am not a supporter of, because it's going to boomerang at some point. And Ozempic doesn't teach you how to love yourself. It doesn't help you identify your binge and emotional eating triggers. It doesn't help you feel through your emotions. It doesn't teach you healthy coping mechanisms. It doesn't help you identify the roots of your symptoms and your hormone issues. It doesn't help you build positive self-talk. It doesn't help with anything. It just shuts everything off. So,
That's the tagline. Ozempic doesn't help you love yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it doesn't help with
there.
anything. And yeah, some people are having fast weight loss, but like, what happens when they come off of it? And if your doctor's telling you, oh no, you'll just have to be on this for the rest of your life, like,
run,
because like that is just a huge red flag, right? Yeah. So I'm a big no. Here's a cool thing. You guys have probably seen this, but I have a client a month ago who was diagnosed diabetic. Her hemoglobin A1C was 6.8. And her doctor's like, yeah, Ozempic's the only thing that will get your A1C down. She was like, yeah, the only thing that will get your insulin resistance or your A1C down. That's what her doctor said. But luckily, she's like, I don't want to take medication. I don't want to take GLP-1s. And I was like, let's get you on berberine and alpha lipoic acid. And luckily, she had stopped binge eating at that point. Her A1C dropped from 6.8 to 6.1 in 3 weeks with berberine, ALA, and chromium. But that doesn't make Big Pharma any money. So they're like, no, GLP-1s. And so I'm like, so I'm seeing all these powerful miracles through natural healing, not just supplements, but like she's doing her self-care. She's meditating. She's doing sacred rage and like beating up her pillow and screaming her emotion out when she's angry because she's in a stressful relationship. Like she's doing the work. And because she's addressing these different facets, that's why it's shifting. So again, we need to normalize doing the work, addressing the roots, owning our stuff. That is just significant. But that's the power, like 3 weeks, that's it. I'm like by November, your A1C will be back in the 5s. And her doctor's going to be like, what did you do? Right?
Hopefully they ask, and hopefully they listen.
Hopefully they ask. I do love that when doctors are like, what did you do? That's the best. That's the best.
Yeah.
But this shouldn't have happened.
They're like, yeah, they're like, there's no way that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
so since a huge part of our audience is women, we are trying to speak more about perimenopause and menopause and the hormonal transition. So I'm curious, do you see anything as women, as we start to see those hormonal shifts, does that affect how we eat, how we look at food? Yeah. What's happening there?
Oh, yeah. So there's 2 facets. Okay. First facet is if you were like me and you were in binge eating and food addiction and all this stuff in your 20s, you can put yourself into perimenopause and menopause or postmenopause temporarily in your 20s. So I was flagging postmenopausal at 24. I had no progesterone, albeit my estrogen was through the roof. So I had the estrogen dominance case, but I had no progesterone. From all the havoc I put my body through, my cortisol was through the roof, hypothyroid, insulin resistance, all of it. So that was 24. And of course, then I spent a few years really diligently working on my hormone and gut issues and balanced it back out. But you can put yourself there innocently early if you don't deal with these behaviors. And then yes, into your 30s, especially if you are people-pleasing, perfection, your last on your list, you have a history of yo-yo dieting and using food to cope. It is so easy to start perimenopause early. And or end up having a tougher go with it than you have to. And same with menopause or post. So these shifts in our life cycle or any hormone imbalances you have a significant impact on your relationship with food and the way you perceive yourself, because your hormones dictate the way you feel and your hormones dictate the way you produce your neurotransmitters, serotonin, the calming neurotransmitter, dopamine, the reward, pleasure neurotransmitter, oxytocin helps you feel connected to yourself and others. And when we have low oxytocin, this is huge. Okay, so maybe I'll back up a bit. So a lot of women have low progesterone. I deem progesterone the feminine hormone. Why? Because if you don't slow down and bring some balance into your life and start honoring yourself and your body, you're going to have low progesterone. You cannot supplement your way out of low progesterone in the sense of like just taking bioidenticals or supplements. You've got to change your habits and behaviors if you want to see the progesterone come back up, in my opinion. And the reason for that is because if your cortisol is really high, your stress hormone, right? You feel fatigue. Fatigue increases your hunger signal, makes you more hungry. So it's easier to want to overeat or binge. When you're tired, you're in the I don't care mentality. I'm just going to eat whatever I want. That becomes an emotional eating trigger. And then those things and the overbooking and the chasing your worth and the people pleasing spikes your cortisol even higher. And then you panic because you gain weight, and then you exercise more and eat less because that's what the big industries have told you. And then that just stresses your cortisol out more. And my whole point of all of this is the more stressed your adrenals and the higher your cortisol gets, the more lower likelihood you have of having healthy egg quality and really optimal ovulation in your cyclical years. And then you're not producing that majority of that progesterone in your cyclical years. And then you're eating up precursors, right, in your adrenals to help you produce it as you get into peri and menopause. And you're just very deficient. And the reason I say it's the feminine hormone is because if we look at this from an energetic perspective, okay, we need a balance of masculine and feminine energy, but your masculine is your take action, your going. Right? You're already probably really good at that. But what you're struggling with is to slow down, to feel safe making yourself a priority, to speak to yourself with love and respect and be kind to yourself and honor what you need. That is the feminine: compassion, love, trust, patience, slowing down, being, sitting, relaxing. Women feel so incredibly uncomfortable doing this. So how are you going to balance your progesterone if you are full blown always in your masculine? We've got to balance it out and bring more of the feminine, which is the healing and the self-love work, right? Yeah. So when your progesterone is low, you may have low oxytocin. I went through this. I felt nothing. I did not feel depression. I felt flatlined. I felt disconnected from everything around me and felt so apathetic. I didn't know why, but I was like, this doesn't feel right. We need enough oxytocin to feel connected to ourselves and others, especially in our relationships and our love relationships, right? So if you have that low progesterone, feeling low oxytocin, you're going to be more likely to want to reach for something to feel and get that high. So food, you have more sugar cravings, right? You're not sleeping well. Your GABA is low. You want to eat more sugar. So this just is examples, several multi-layered examples of how if one hormone is off, how it impacts your mood boosting neurotransmitters and your ability to feel connected to yourself and others. And if that's shut off, of course, it's going to be easier to want to go and shop or drink or eat because you want to feel or feel some sense of control, because it's very unsettling when you don't feel like yourself. And when you're tired, like I said, and you're in that I don't care mentality and your appetite's increasing, you're gaining weight, you feel out of control with your body. It's all very unsettling and stressful if we don't know how to deal with it. So to me, those are some of the key things rooted in those hormone imbalances that can become amplified if we aren't addressing them through perimenopause and menopause, which, perimenopause starts between 35 and 37. A lot of women don't realize that. Then you throw in a thyroid issue, right? Where you're not hungry in the morning and then you assume you shouldn't eat, and then you're setting yourself up for later day overeating or binge eating. But well, if I'm not hungry, I shouldn't eat when we should be eating. Please don't fast if you're dealing with these hormone issues. Like, in my opinion, they're just going to set you up for overconsumption and like stress your hormones out more. We need to eat more protein and fat and carbs, like good, from nature stuff. Like, we've just been so confused about food. So yeah, these hormone imbalances all play a role, and they really impact the way we feel. And that is what is a big driver of then, seeing an increase in your behaviors with self-sabotage with food. And then of course that amplifies your hormone issues and makes you feel worse being in those behaviors. And then that fuels the hormone imbalances. And then the hormone imbalances keep fueling the emotional eating. So hormone imbalances become huge emotional and binge eating triggers.
Wow. It's whack-a-mole. Again, it's just so complex. And you're everything you're saying, you're reminding me of a client that I had that was incredibly disciplined. Everything organic, grass-fed, calories, everything in place. But she was extremely apathetic, very anhedonic, couldn't even accept a hug from a husband or a child. And yeah, hormones were a terrible, circadian rhythm out the window. But it's like when all these things are off, how do you even begin to put the pieces back together? Yeah. We actually ended up doing microdosing with plant medicine. That was sort of her step into the work, because there was the thought of doing the work was just out of the realm of possibility. Totally. But once she was able to want to hug, that oxytocin ended up being a gateway for everything else, which was really, really cool.
Yes,
because just connection with other people. It was sad at first to see that we couldn't even start there, but once we could, it's like that connection with other people fueled all the other things to then kind of unlock and fall into place.
Yeah, and I think I love what you just said, because each person, each woman requires a bit of a different approach. It's not a one size fits all. Yeah. And it is truly about baby stepping in and starting with something that feels digestible and not going to overwhelm you even more to the point where you're just going to shut down. And I think that's so important, because obviously if you're dealing with perimenopause or hormone issues, your nervous system is stressed, you're constantly in fight or flight. The thought of going on a healing journey is like, hell no, I don't have any capacity to get uncomfortable, and now I'm going to have to do all that. Like, I do not want to be thrown into the deep end, and it can turn women off. And that's why, like, if you're considering getting help from anyone or starting a journey, like, go slow, take baby steps. You cannot rush through this. And you also want to keep your nervous system in mind, right? But baby steps is the way here, truly.
Yeah. I think a lot of our culture is moving. Obviously, the pendulum has swung where we're acknowledging these issues, but it's so much so that it's like, oh, you can have that, and you're allowed to have that. And I heard a girl in the street, or my mom actually heard it. This girl was like, oh, I can't be in my fight or flight. I'm like, oh, so we're just full on ignoring our nervous system.
That's not good. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like, that's not it. That's not
Is
it.
that like a overheard in New York City kind
Yeah,
of
it was
a
an
thing?
overheard in New York. I can't even do that. I was like, wow, that's a problem.
Yeah. Wow. No, there is a lot of
wild.
that with, you're right, with I can't go into fight or flight. Like the body positivity movement, that pendulum has swung way too far to where it's like so unhealthy. There's so many extremes.
To feel anxious, normal to feel depressed,
Yeah,
normal
no.
to, everyone has ADHD. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's something that we can
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can
totally.
you talk about the body positivity movement? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because actually, I was watching the Victoria's Secret fashion show the other night, just curious, and you can see it there. And I'm all about self-love, of course, but once we hit like an obesity range and we're dealing with all these health issues, so what would you say to that?
100%. So I think I'm all for body positivity as well, and learning how to love yourself and feel connect with your body. But when your weight keeps going up and you are following influencers that are also obese, binge eating, and then they're dying in their 30s and 40s because the reality is being ignored, that you're right, when you do get to a certain weight, it does increase your chances of health issues and symptoms. And the more that goes up, it increases your risk of serious health issues. And we need to not ignore that. And I think a theme for a lot of these things that are going to extreme is a lack of ownership and responsibility for people to take these steps and like, again, do the inner work. So all the love in the world to you. If you are gaining weight or you feel you are, heavy, or you're hanging, just whatever that is, I always say hanging on to protection. The body hangs on because she doesn't feel safe. One thing you can start thinking about now is try to not feel ashamed of your body and the way that you look or the way that you feel, and start to remind myself, my body's hanging on because she doesn't feel safe. I just haven't either been given the proper guidance or information about that, or I haven't actually taken any time to ask myself, why? Why do I not feel safe? Why is she hanging on? And why don't I actually start understanding why, so I can take the steps to help my body feel safer? Not a weight loss journey, a safety and healing journey. And when you do that and you address those roots, you will learn to love yourself and become connected to your body, and you will heal whatever it is that's going on that's caused the weight gain in the first place. That to me is the ultimate win-win, but we have to take ownership and responsibility. And again, stop letting these influential outside sources dictate us not doing anything about it.
Yeah. Do you think people are maybe kind of using that as an excuse to not do the work?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Just like
oh, well,
Ozempic.
like,
I think
okay.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It's okay to be obese because I love myself, and
Yeah, I don't have to do anything about
coast.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
that's wild.
destructive. I do hear
Yes.
that a lot. I'm in New York, and there's a lot of that acceptance, and it's like, oh no, it's okay, you're beautiful. It's like, well, yeah, you're metabolically unhealthy, insulin resistant, and
Yeah.
you are just gonna bypass that, and then what? Like,
Yeah.
I think you said earlier, like it'll just keep coming back. Like these things don't just dissolve into the earth.
No.
Issues are gonna come back in some form until you listen.
Yeah. Until you listen, or unfortunately, some people have to have a big wake up call. We don't want that, but it's, so we have got to clear some of the noise and stop letting people we don't know tell us, like, you know what I mean? Like, if it's a good influence, great. But if it's like this kind of movement, no, your health and your life are vital and sacred. Help yourself. Right. So, yeah.
Because this is so complex, a lot of times Renee and I like to talk just about circadian rhythm and maybe setting the tone for the day, because the morning can be such a powerful time. A lot of women are either waking up really early and exercising, or they're not eating and they're drinking coffee and they're not hungry. And it's like, well, there's this beautiful time to connect and sync with nature. Do you personally have any morning rituals or routines, or something that you like to share with clients?
Yeah, definitely. So, personally, I like my clients and myself, this is too, I have a good tech boundary. So I get up, I don't go on my phone. I really suggest to stay away from that as much as you can. once the snow's on the ground and it's really cold, I'll bundle up and go and get my few minutes of sunshine in the morning. But right now I try to get out for at least 20 minutes, feet in the grass, sunshine. Even if it's not sunny, I still get outside because that's so amazing for your circadian rhythm. Even if you only have 5 minutes though. I also try to eat something within 30 minutes of waking up. I just think it's so incredibly important for blood sugar. Getting some food in the stomach helps bring that cortisol down, feeling more satiated, waking up the hunger signal. And I drink water with electrolytes right away. I love, instead of working out first thing in the morning, I mean, part of that really depends on your hormones, but if you're depleted and you're tired and you're drained, I would suggest getting a little more sleep. I would suggest a little bit of self-care in the morning, like some breath work, a meditation, a journal, some EFT tapping to help regulate your nervous system, but still get that small snack in if you can within that 30 minutes of waking up. I just think those things are so huge.
Exercise.
Yes, me too. 100%. That's how I actually lost the weight finally and kept it off. I quit the gym because it was the thing tipping my hormones over the edge and keeping them really off. And quitting the gym and focusing on rest for a year helped everything shift so beautifully. And the weight fell off. I didn't diet. I didn't do it. I rested and I loved myself. And I know that sounds so cliche, but like it literally is what worked. So yeah.
I believe it.
And what about like any kind of quiet time where your body can talk back to you? Because I think that's a scary thing for a lot of women. Just reconnecting to intuition. Like we're so busy consuming other things that we never get the chance to talk to our bodies.
100%. And I think that's where you start small for like 1 or 2 minutes. Close your eyes, put your hand on your heart and just say, hello, body. Thank you for all you do for me. Because your body is the reason you exist. And then just ask her, do you have any messages for me right now or guidance, anything you want to tell me? Or if you have a specific symptom, that is your body trying to speak to you and get your attention. So acknowledge the symptom and where it is in the body and say, hey, like, why are you here? What messages do you have for me? Your body will tell you. You will get a message so fast and it will surprise you because you're intuitive already. You don't need to learn intuition. It's already there, but it's building the muscle of reconnecting and trusting that you have it too. And that will guide you. That will lead you for the rest of your life. Because your body will tell you, she will speak quietly or she will yell at you and, you know, be like, can you please do this or change this or listen to me? And so I think having that quiet time is so powerful, but start small. And then you can go to the 5 or 10 minutes or the 15 or the 20 or however long you desire to connect. But I think that that's incredibly important. My body leads me and I always talk to her and it's seriously priceless. And she has your back. Your body has your back. She's not out to get you. It's your mind that has been programmed, but your body's always trying to heal. You get a cut, it heals. She's always trying to heal, but we just by accidentally get in the way. So I think quiet time for self-connection, quiet time for self-care and slowing down and have it being very simple and basic or just sitting and relaxing, getting out into nature, incredibly important. We need and deserve that time. If you want to heal, you must be willing to take that time and again, build it up as you get into your journey. So yeah, connect with your body and it's safe to feel. It's safe to embrace your intuition. I was afraid of mine at first when I was healing. So I get the whole like intimidation, like, oh my gosh, I can feel and it's scary. Just be patient. It'll get easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Yeah.
I know I learned the beauty and the frightening part of psychedelics is I didn't even know that I didn't like just sitting with myself. I didn't even know that. And the psychedelics were like, oh, this is something you need to look at. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay.
Right.
So scary lesson, but beautiful lesson at the same time. Yeah.
Yep. Whatever is uncomfortable is what we usually need to face.
Yes.
Do you have an opinion about plant medicines and this kind of
I'm
stuff?
open to everything. I mean, from an energetic standpoint, the one thing that I've just observed some more negative reactions to is overconsumption of anything. So I've just witnessed some loved ones and clients overconsume weed. And we have to understand that overconsumption or the way things impact our energy field. And if your energy field is compromised and there's negative energies coming and having a negative influence on you, you can feel more anxiety, more paranoia, more negative self-talk and get more into your head. So we need to be squeaky clean and clear that we're not using anything to suppress or numb. That's incredibly important. And that's where I think the line needs to be drawn with anything, whether it's a psychedelic or, Otherwise, if you're using it in an intentional way, it's completely up to you, right? So,
It's just like food, like anything could be a poison.
Yep. Everything in moderation, balance. Yeah.
Like doing ayahuasca 50 times in the jungle. Not me. I have
Maybe it's like spread out once a year or something, but not like every week. I don't know.
Yeah. We all know people that like keep going back, but I agree.
Yeah.
That's great.
I would love for you to share maybe more about the Body Freedom program.
That's what I was going to ask.
Oh, yeah, totally. So yeah, Body Freedom is really about taking this multidimensional approach where we're healing mentally, physically, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. You don't have to start like chanting or get a pendulum or anything, but I more so mean like that intuitive connection with yourself, embracing, your gifts and being an empath and learning how to have healthy boundaries around all of that. So essentially what we do is we really work toward identifying the root causes of your self-sabotage with food, whether you're an emotional eater, a binge eater, full-blown food addiction, binge purge cycle, and we help you get to the roots of those triggers. We look at your wounded inner child and we start going on the journey to help you identify that your triggers are actually teachers trying to show you where you're out of alignment. And as you see what your triggers actually mean, you can take the aligned steps to overcome them and heal them. And we introduce a lot of tools and support and loving accountability to help you unwire the old patterns in your brain and build new ones, which is I'm triggered. Oh, I have lots of healthy ways to cope. What do I really need instead of food? And that's ultimately the goal at the end of the day, is that going to food no longer feels familiar and safe. It's actually feeling through and working through whatever it is that is going on for you. And you build the worth and you build the self-love, and we get to the roots of your weight loss blocks and really talk about it more in like that protection standpoint. We do hormone testing and look at your gut and make sure all your physical body is working properly, but it really is rooted in healing the people pleasing and the perfection and the diet and food rules and helping you figure out what feels like balanced for you with food. Right? Helping you have that connection with yourself we were talking about earlier, embracing your intuition, saying no, setting boundaries. So these are some of the things that are intertwined along the way, but I do a lot of mindset work with my clients. I call it the ego mind, the inner critic, and I teach them how to take their power back from their inner critic and live more in their heart, which is where the true them really resides, and what to do if their ego is taking over, which is essentially your wounded inner child that's just upset in the moment and needs some love. No diets, no quick fixes, taking it one step at a time, taking a very holistic approach. And the results are incredible. So I call it body freedom because it's true freedom for life, and you take your life back. And that to me is what every person on this planet deserves, and every woman on this planet deserves to claim for themselves. So take a step, even just today from our chat, like take one step toward body freedom.
I love that. Thank you for building that and helping so many people.
My pleasure.
This is amazing. So where can people learn more about the program or follow you?
Yeah, so my website is amberapproved.ca. You can take the free emotional eating quiz if you're wondering if you're struggling. Also, there is a free emotional eating workshop if you want to learn more and get on the journey. You can check out the website. It's the the podcast is the No Sugarcoating Podcast. And then if you want to connect to talk about the program or going on the journey, I offer a consultation. It's complimentary and it is 30 minutes, and we can hop on Zoom and talk about what your struggles are, where you're seeking support, what's holding you back, and why a different approach may be exactly what you need.
Amazing.
Yeah. So wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Amber. Just one more question before we let you go. If you could share one final piece of advice with our audience, you've shared so much, but maybe just one simple takeaway that they can start doing immediately.
Yeah, you're not alone. Forgive yourself. Give yourself grace and compassion for what you're going through, and be very gentle with yourself on this journey. Honestly, you're not alone. You don't have to hide this. So get some help or start gathering resources like podcasts, right? And start listening and learning.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think people do feel really alone, like they're the only ones struggling with this, but we need to keep the conversation going. So
yes, we do. Beautiful. So I appreciate you ladies holding space.
Yes, such a beautiful conversation. Thank you. We're so grateful for your time.
Likewise.
Yes. And thanks to everyone that tuned in. We will see you next time.